Last season, the Pittsburgh Pirates had quite the amateur draft, landing them the top 2 prospects now in all of baseball, and Pete Good and David Yan. But even more than that, 7 now of the top 9 prospects on this organization's top 20 are from that previous draft class, and every single one of those players is on our Double-A squad, and that team plays their first game today, and I want to see our prospects and get a first impression of kind of what they can do for us. Hopefully in the near future, a lot of these players are coming in with very high overalls, and so they don't project to take too long to develop in the minors, particularly our 3 hitters that all are starting at a 70+ overall, and I'm excited to see these guys play. Let's get into some Double-A action here to start this episode. On the mound for us will be Pete Good here, a lefty pitcher with some very high upside, 96 potential at the time that he was drafted. But one of the unfortunate things was that he only has 3 pitches, and 2 of them are fastballs, and there were some suggestions to add to that. It feels a little bit low, and especially for a guy who's only 18 years old, I think adding to a pitch mix makes a lot of sense here. And so before we get into this game, I do want to go ahead and add that pitch here. So right now he has the 4-seam, the slider, and the 2-seamer. I think rather than a changeup, I'm going to add a breaking ball here with a curve. And so I know that we have to set individual ratings here for this curveball. And so for this one, I think it needs to be his lowest control. So we have a 48, a 55, and a 61. So I'm thinking maybe a control about 40 should do. And we want to keep his pitches consistent. So he had that 96-mile-an-hour fastball, and with it being a velocity 0, he still has that. So let's go maybe 40 on this as well. Just make sure that these are still the same, and we have these right where we want them to be. In terms of break, I mean, you want a good break. I feel like we can have that maybe match his highest break, which is 51. So we'll go with a 51 rating here on the break for his curveball. And there he has it, his 4th pitch of this mix, which will help him be a little bit more varied here as we watch him make his first start. A ton of Double-A debuts to go over here, and we're going to start with Buford Kingman, and we're lucky enough to get some lefty pitching, which is where all of our prospects are better at here in their debuts. Hopefully we can get some good hitting in that case. And Kingman unfortunately starts with a strikeout. Albert Sweeney up next. He's hitting in the 3 spot against lefties. That's going to be fair down that left field line, and he will stay at first base. So a single to start his time in Double-A, which I don't think will be all that long if I'm being honest. But here's the man that everybody's here for, David Yan, number 1 prospect, internally at least, number 2 in baseball. Got a decent chunk of that first pitch, but it is at the warning track for an out. Pete Good, ranked by the consensus MLB rankings as the best prospect in baseball. He's just a little bit far away for my liking to be number 1, but he, of course, has loads of potential, and maybe even more importantly, just an absolutely immaculate flow, which pretty much I feel like guarantees that he's going to be good. I mean, you can't be rocking hair like that and be a bad pitcher. It just seems wrong here. Gets the first 2 batters down, and this one does get past the diving glove of Connor Griffin. Great effort there. But a hit on the board here in the first inning, a single with 2 outs. Low in the zone, and Termar takes the force out at second. And speaking of tomorrow, we're not only looking at our draft picks from last year here while we're in Double-A. Might as well take a look at Tamar Johnson. We still have a ton of high hopes for him in the franchise. I absolutely plan on him being a long-term middle infielder for this team. I think this could be a year where we try to get him up to AAA at some point if he produces well. But he will start in Double-A alongside all of our picks from last season. Pete Good retires the first batter here of the inning, but Jorge Burgos gets it down in left field, and a play tried to be made out there, but just couldn't cut it off correctly, and so it's a triple here with one out here in the second. Pete Good doesn't really have strikeout stuff yet, and so he's going to be relying on that soft contact. I hope he can develop his strikeouts because, he throws it decently hard, and hopefully with the curveball now he'll have a decent pitch mix. Just has to work on getting those strikeouts. He doesn't have any so far in the first couple of innings. Buford Kingman struck out his first time, and we're now getting through the second time through the order. Got some good contact on the ball there, but it went right to the center fielder. Can we see the first strikeout in the Double-A career of Pete Good here in the inning? Not going to happen here against the 9-hitter. He flies out over to Buford Kingman in right. There we see it, a 97-mile-an-hour fastball right at the top of the zone. A beautiful pitch for the first punch out of the game. Chopper right back to him here from Garrett Howe will end off the third. So far, so good from Pete Good. Ooh, Sweeney's looking at the slider underneath. He did a good job extending that pitch count for that at-bat, but ends up going down looking. Jan swung at his first pitch last time up. He's swinging at it again. This one's going to get down in the gap if it doesn't leave the yard. Doesn't quite have enough carry to be a homer, but a double here for David Jan. This dude is liking what he's seeing out of the pitcher's hand. He's only seen 2 pitches so far. Swung at both of them. Got great contact on both as well. This time he's awarded with an extra base hit. The first of many for David Jan, our number 1 pick in the rebuild. Termar follows him up and goes down hacking at a slider low. Back to the pitching. Pete Good here into the fourth. A slider for his second strikeout. Great looking pitch there. I feel like if we watch a lot of him, he'll end up with a decent strikeout rate, and hopefully that will boost his ratings. I feel like even a pitcher with low strikeouts per 9 usually gets a decent amount of strikeouts. Now, he only has 2 here, and we're in the 4th, so it's not like he's doing great in that area. Here is Colton Ledbetter. Gets a ton of that pitch. That's going to score a run. And it does. It ended up being pretty close. We have a good arm out there in right field with Kingman. But that was just a really well-struck ball there. And I think it goes to show you that even though, he's a guy that's going to be, at least early on, a soft contact pitcher, I don't know if his strikeouts will ever really develop. He's still far enough away that these batters are getting pretty good hard hits in his debut. Showing us some good stuff, but also showing that it might be a while. Yeah, I know he's only given up 1 run, but there have been some pretty hard hit balls here. Kingman gets his first hit on the board, which I believe now means every player that we came here to watch hit now has a hit on the board, which you absolutely love to see. You don't always get that level of offense on the minors. And I know it's still, again, only 1-1, but at least we're getting some hits on the board as Sweeney will ground out to end the inning. Back up in the 5th is good. That's going to be a base hit for Rosario to lead off the 5th. Right up the middle. And 60 pitches now into this ball game as another base knock. We'll put runners on first and second now. Good, starting to slow down a bit. It's not due to his stamina. His stamina is 80, so he shouldn't be slowing down in that aspect. The bunt reaches a base, and so no outs here in the fifth. The bases are loaded now. And we're not going to get to see if he can get out of that jam. It looks like he's going to get pulled here. So 4 innings for good. 1 run allowed, but he might be credited some more depending on what happens here to end the inning. And luckily, nothing. So only 1 run credited to him in his 4-inning debut. Not bad at all. But again, still shows all the room for improvement that he has. So about kind of what I expected probably in his debut, if I'm being honest. Here into the 7th now as we'll focus kind of on our hitters now that our starting pitcher has left the game. Feels like Kingman's been at the plate with a lot of 2 outs on the board. He almost always seems to be kind of the one to end an inning for us as Sweeney picks up his 2nd hit. That one was really close to going foul. Let's see this one again. Just how close was it? I mean, that's pretty much on the line. That's a similar spot to where he had his first base hit. This one just even further down the line. Jan swinging at the circle change. Another strikeout for him. Unfortunately, has that double, but has struck out a couple of times. Termar grounds out here top of the 8th. That'll do it for the hitting here, but we still have one more player to watch make his debut. It's our closer that we took with our last pick in the class. Yet another lefty arm that we selected. I don't know if I have plans on him being the long-term closer. I don't think he necessarily can't do it. I think we could maybe get somebody with a little bit higher potential. I believe he's right at 80, or maybe it was 81. I can't remember exactly, but it's definitely low 80s. Going to be a bullpen arm for us for sure. And kind of the threshold for bringing players up at a bullpen arm is lower, so he could be, you know, alongside Sweeney and maybe Kingman, one of the first players to make their debut from our draft picks. Gets the save here in his MLB debut with some flyouts. 1, 2, 3. And 9 hits apiece for the Curve and the Rubber Ducks, but the good guys coming out victorious, and everybody got in on the hitting action from our key prospects in this game. But I'm not done watching David Yan. I want to see him hit again. Here he is, once again going against the lefty. We're getting lucky here. I kind of wanted to see him go against a righty, but maybe the reliever coming in later in the game can be a righty here. Yan, once again, swinging at a first pitch in the at-bat, and you can't blame him when he's getting results like this. The first RBI for David Yan. We saw his first hit. Now we see his first RBI. Really similar hit to what we saw from him last game around as well. He loves those gaps between the infielders there in that middle of the field. Back up here, top of the 2nd. This has been a much more high-scoring affair here. Already 5 runs on the board for our Curve. So Will Dion, or I don't know how to pronounce all these minor leaguers' names. I don't even know how to pronounce half the major leaguers' names, if I'm being honest, in baseball. So I'm certainly not going to get these minor leaguers right. David Yan, somebody that we obviously have a ton of hope for in our future. I think not only can he be somebody that has a great defensive presence, somebody that I hope will be a player that other teams are afraid to steal on once he gets kind of towards his potential, but also somebody that I have high hopes on for being a major offensive contributor. He's already pretty good against lefties. Really need him to develop against righties. And here he gets on base again. This time not hit quite as hard into that gap, but that's same area of the field now. He's gotten 3 hits on the board already. And we're seeing just how good he is right off the rip against the left-handed pitching. And a few more runs on the board here as he's back up for his 3rd appearance in the 4th inning. Now we get to see him go against righties, which is kind of what I wanted to see. Not as developed in that area, but I certainly don't think he's bad. It's not to the point where I think maybe a year of just really good development, you know, those big pops like a +8 or +7, or even sometimes you can get a +10. He's one of those kind of years away from being really good against both sides. And he, as that switch hitter, I think that year will come for him. His heat maps are pretty solid as well, showing some good discipline here, which he does have solid play skills as well. This one over the middle. He cranks it out to right field. Hauled in. Even his misses. He's got a couple of really well-hit balls that haven't gone down for hits. I've been really impressed so far in the game and a half we've seen from Jan. And, you know, I'm always very, I'd say maybe a little bit conservative about bringing players up. I want to make sure that they're ready when I bring a player up, but it's hard not to see what we're seeing from Jan and think that it might not be too far into the future. Another hit on the board, same area of the field, but this time against the righty. We might be seeing quite a few hits up that left center gap from Jan throughout this Pirates franchise if these first 2 games of his AA career are any indication. Already 3 hits on the board here, top of the 8th. 10 runs altogether for the Curve. Hitting 500 so far on the season. That's crazy. This one over the middle. He cranks it to right again. This time, it's not being caught on the warning track. It is out of here. David Jan, his first AA home run, a first home run as a draftee of the Pittsburgh Pirates. Oh my goodness. A 4-hit game in just his 2nd game in AA. I mean, who says he can only hit lefties right off the rip? I mean, he's looking just as impressive against right-handed pitching right now. What a crazy, awesome game. I don't think we can. I was planning on watching a 3rd game with David Jan, but I don't think you can follow that up. We got to end on a 4 of 5 game with 3 RBI and a home run. You're not getting better than that. If he was a little bit faster, he could have maybe even hit for the cycle in this game. That's how good of a game that he had. Probably not, though, because all of his hits were in left center field, but close. Here in the first week of scouting, and I think there's a decent chance there is a generational player on the board. Usually in my series, it feels like year 2 or 3 almost always has a generational player. I don't know why that is, but I think we have one once again, and just kind of this well-rounded offensive skill set that I'm seeing here. The 18 years old, and just the very high projected overall to start. If he's not generational, that 6-point gap is going to be pretty hard to deal with. So I don't think he'd be on the board for us, but we're going to go ahead and scout him for 1 week to see if that gap changes, which would be, according to the scouting video I left y'all not too long ago, a dead giveaway that he is indeed a generational second base prospect. Before going any further here into the episode, I have to quickly pause and shout out Jay Yark for becoming a member here on the channel. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate it, and I hope you enjoy the members-only content that we will be releasing regularly here on the channel throughout the year. Let's get back to the Pirates. Let's hop into a critical situation or two, shall we? We've got a close game going on against the Baltimore Orioles, and here's a sneak peek at how the team is doing with some rankings across the board. Spencer Horwitz up to the plate. He's hitting 345 here early and unable to get any contact on that high fastball there. That was a really well-placed pitch for strike three. And so now we're just trying to hold serve here. Bottom of the ninth, a runner on third, one out here for Bailey Falter. Jackson Holliday, that's going to reach, and that's going to end this ball game. How many times? I mean, we're in episode, is this 8? How many times have we been walked off already in this franchise series, man? That's crazy. Happens again here. Baltimore, obviously, a very talented squad. And we fall to them here in the final inning. Jackson Holliday coming up with a big moment here for his Orioles ball club. That's not going to be the only critical situation for us here. We have the bases juiced for Hayes here against the division rival Brewers. Joel Payamps at the mound for Milwaukee. That's going to be deep enough for a tag here, and the score is now 4-5 with 2 outs here. Got to keep the inning alive, and it's Henry Davis to the plate, and a full count pitch is through the gap in right center field. Davis gets a 2-run double that gives Pittsburgh the lead. That's the second time he's come up for us here in season 2 already, in his first season as more of a contributor on the squad. I mean, Henry Davis has been impressive in the first couple of episodes here in season 2. And ultimately, Pittsburgh would win this ball game. And so, sacrifice fly from Hayes into a 2-run double from Henry Davis down the stretch. Nice to be on the winning side of the critical situations now, as the Pirates take a victory here on the road against Milwaukee. Another player I want to watch play here in this episode is Jared Jones. I don't think Jared had the year he was hoping for, or I was hoping for last season, but in his first 2 starts of this year, he's pitched 15 innings and has yet to have an earned run on his plate. He has a sub-1 whip all the way down at 0.8. And so I want to see if he can keep his hot streak going in another game here in that very same series against the Milwaukee Brewers. Let's watch Jared Jones pitch. I would love for him to kind of break out this season and have more of a caliber of year, if not even better than he had back in 24. Gets the first 2 batters down here, and Contreras gets on base. A bit of a lucky hit on a pitch well outside the zone there. But I'm sure Milwaukee will take it. And then nice strike 3 on the slider to get Hoskins down and out of the inning cleanly. Chourio hitting in that 5 spot. Young stud for the Brewers. He's down. On a grounder to third. Bo Bichette, we thought about maybe offering him, but decided to go more of a cost-efficient player. He ends up in the division, so it'll be fun to have him to deal with. He, of course, has still tons of room to grow, as Mitchell will get an extra base hit over to right field, a 2-out double for the Brewers. Can we avoid getting Jared Jones' first earned run of the season here? Just got to get that 3rd out against Joseph Ortiz. Popped up into foul territory. A lot of room here in foul territory in Milwaukee. So we get that 3rd crucial out Into the third, Sal Frelick will reach via walk. We haven't seen a ton of walks here in early on in this franchise rebuild. I feel like it's because we're watching some pretty high quality pitching for the most part. Most of the pitchers we've seen have been Jared Jones and Paul Skenes. So good pitchers don't allow all that many walks. Great strikeout there. For the first out of the inning, Bryce Terang up to the plate, and that's a stolen base for Milwaukee. Wasn't particularly close. As they get Frelick into scoring position. I don't know what Bryce was waiting for there. Third strikeout on the board for Jared Jones. Contreras reached last time. He's looking to do more than that. This time around, it is gone. And the streak of Jared Jones not allowing any runs is officially over as a 2-run blast from William Contreras gets Milwaukee on the board first here in the third inning. There's a way to bounce back with a strike 3 looking from Jones. Strikeouts are there for him, 4 so far through 3 innings. Chourio back up. That's a tapper over to short. Sliding is Castro, but Chourio has the speed to beat the throw for the leadoff single. Cool looking play from Castro, but you just can't beat the speed from the Milwaukee outfielder there. Bichette. That one took forever to get down and allowed Ramon Laureano to make the long trek to get there. Garrett Mitchell at the plate, and Chourio will slide into scoring position. Mitchell hangs one deep to left field, and Reynolds tracks it down for the second out. Ortiz up to the plate, and he gets hit in the shoulder. Pops right back up. Jared Jones just hasn't really had his best stuff here today, unfortunately. I was hoping to keep that, hot streak going that he's had so far. He's pitched 7 and 8 innings. I don't think he's getting that far here in his third start of the season. This one left a little too high on the breaking ball. Yelich gets on base. Now he's going for second off of a pitch in the dirt. They'll call it a wild pitch here to get into scoring position. Slider gets Bryce looking again. I don't know what's going on with him. He's looked at a couple of pitches that were well inside the zone here, and now sliding safely into third. Sacrifice now in play for Contreras, who's gotten a couple of hits already, including, of course, that 2-run homer, the only scores we've seen so far in the ball game. But Henry Davis snags that one for the out. Hoskins strikes out again on a pitch in the dirt. Henry Davis makes the throw we needed. And that'll be a 5th inning here for Jared Jones, which would be the end of his day. Showed some solid stuff. Had his strikeouts as always, but just like last start, kind of the home run was what bit him in this game. And Nestor Cortez picks up the victory for Milwaukee. We get shut out in this game. Nestor Cortez doing some work against our Pirates lineup as our offense continues to struggle doing anything kind of consistently. We'll have our moments, but consistency is not there for this Pirates offense in this moment. We have just finished the month of April here in our Pirates franchise, and our Pirates sit at 15 and 19, which is tied for third in the division. Up to this point, we've been struggling a little bit over our last 10. We had a decent start to the season here. 15 and 19 now, and I do have to say that Billy Fink is a generational prospect after scouting him for 1 week. And that is really exciting to get a potential generational player should he fall to 3. Now that bonus demand at 9.8 is under 10, which I don't see often from generational players. It might be because kind of the second baseman and the shortstop usually have lower power than other position players. And I wonder if that comes into it. You'll see some generational players that will start with power in the 70s, whereas he's not going to get there. So I wonder, he's just barely under 10. But even with that, I'm fairly confident that Billy Fink will be somebody that we can project as a generational effect. I'm projecting him to be an 81 overall player with 99 potential, and obviously would be a slam dunk selection for us should he fall to number 3. But I've also done a little bit more scouting here, and Joshua Sanchez looks like another option should he not fall that far. And so we have a couple of options here. If these guys go 1 and 2, which is where they're ranked by MLB, that would be really unfortunate, as those are the top 2 players so far in this class. I forgot to go over my training plans for our new players here when I was more focused on the minors earlier on in the episode. So let's go through them now. Pete Good will be focusing on pitcher clutch, I think, for now, or pitching clutch, I think is what it's actually called. I just always call it pitcher clutch for some reason. That control -3 is only because we added the curveball that directly affected his control rating. So other than that, he's up across the board. Ray Drake will also be working on his pitching clutch. I think that's even more of a problem. I think we definitely want to try and work on these guys' per 9 so they can get their strikeouts up. But especially in the case of Ray Drake, I'm more worried about that pitching clutch for now. I feel like it's the strikeouts per 9 will just go up naturally, although he hasn't gone any up so far. But it's still very early on in the season. I want control up for Richard Lynn, so we're going bullpen session here. As for David Yan, I thought of a variety of ways we could go here, but ultimately I decided on that arm strength. We saw that runners were not afraid to test Henry Davis in this episode, and so if we can get that arm strength and accuracy up, I feel like he could become a very good defensive catcher. And then I just think the plate skills are in a pretty good spot. And if I could just go right-handed pitching instead of having to choose, contact or power, I'd definitely choose that. But since that's not an option, really focusing on that arm accuracy for now. But I think he'll be somebody who, because his ratings are kind of well-balanced, will be switching up his training kind of throughout his career, would be my guess. Sweeney here, he's another guy who's just really well-rounded across the board. You could argue a variety of different areas with him as well. Decided to go plate skills here. I could also see myself going for power later on in the year, which is what we are doing for Buford Kingman. We're going to try to get that power up for him. Being a corner outfield, I'd like to get some power in that spot, and that's what he will be training in. We're still early on in the season, so I don't know if I'll go too deeply into kind of the stats of everybody, but I do want to quickly give a stat update for some of our best players. Paul Skenes right now, a 2.63 ERA with a 1.15 whip, 45 strikeouts in 41 innings. O'Neal Cruz is once again struggling to hit for average. He is losing a decent amount of contact already in his ratings. Jared Jones currently on a cold streak after starting off red hot, but still posting really solid ERA and whip numbers. Brian Reynolds, 4 home runs and a 2.33 average for us in his first 130 or so at bats. Mitch Keller, all the way down to a 1.00 whip, is really nice. David Bednar doing well for us with a 2.13 ERA and an 0.95 whip. Our biggest free agent acquisition, Willie Castro, is hitting for a 2.26 average and 4 home runs so far this season. You have Laureano hitting for a 2.50 average and 3 homers. Horwitz is all the way down to a 2.20 average. He got off to a pretty good start this season, but he's cooled off pretty significantly. And Hayes is also on a cold streak right now. The team hasn't performed well over the last 10 to 15 games, and a lot of players who started off hot are cooling down. David Yan is down to a 216 average and a 720 OPS. We're still so early in the season that one hot or cold streak really can do a lot to your ratings. And so we'll have to get, that's more of why I'm kind of just breezing through them here quickly. Sweeney's not having a good year against righties at all to start. And then Buford Kingman here is a 276 average and a 691 OPS. It looks like he's only, he's hit a few home runs, but he's not hitting much in the way of extra base hits that aren't homers so far this season. There is your kind of stats and scouting update here to end off the episode. We'll be going a decent bit further into the season in the next one, and I'll see you then. Let's go Bucks.